Welcome to tapmilwaukee.com. I'm Jim Higgins, the Arts and Books Editor for the Journal Sentinel, and it's my pleasure today to be speaking with Milwaukee writer Carole Barrowman and her brother John, star of Torchwood, Doctor Who, and a million other things. And we're talking about their book, Hollow Earth. It's a fantasy novel for middle grade readers.
Middle grade readers, but adults are loving it too.
And I've read enough of it to know that I'm an adult that's going to love it too. John, you're used to doing this. If this was the Hollywood pitch meeting, and you were telling, me as a not very bright producer what the book's about, what would you say?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd say you're too late because we've already sold the television rights. But the book itself is about Matt and Em, twins, who live with their single mom in London, England, and they are part of a very secretive group called they are Animares. And they do something at the National Gallery which exposes them as being Animares and opens up their gift or their talent to the bad group of people who are trying to control the Animares, who then want to open up Hollow Earth, where all the monsters and creatures are hidden that have been written about through time from the bestiaries.
Yep.
Then they escape to northern Scotland to an island to be protected by their grandfather and the rest of the family members on the island. And on the island, this is where all the adventures, and they learn more about who they are and what Animare are, and their adventures continue on the island.
And I would add, since I'm probably on the elevator with them pitching this, right? So I would add that an Animare is someone who can bring their art to life. And they can also move in and out of paintings. And what the twins discover when they get to Scotland is that they are actually part of this ancient tradition. So,
Carole,
did we sell it?
You sold it to me. You're the professor of English here. What makes this a middle grade story as opposed to a young adult story, an adult story? Or is that not a concern?
That is a really great question. When we first started working on this, the editor told us, since this is our first children's book together, it's our fourth book together, but this is the first one that's a children's novel. She told us to imagine our ideal reader. Imagine the boy or girl that we would really like to read this, that would love it. And since my kids are a little older, I imagined a couple of nieces and nephews.
Put it this way, we don't explain the color of the curtains in the room, that kind of, you know what I mean? It gets right to the point very quickly, and it's a fast-paced book, and it keeps the attention span.
And I think, you can talk about, because it's set in the islands off the western coast of Scotland, beautiful scenery. So when you talk about things like the moonlight on the Atlantic Ocean, it better be relating to a dark shadow creeping behind someone, or forwarding the plot in some way. So I think I was pitching it to about 12 and 13-year-olds, but what has happened is adults are really enjoying it because we did not condescend to those 12 and 13-year-olds. The other thing is we were big fans when my kids were little too, is of Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is like he's like the first ever kid to draw, and then he draws his way out of his bedroom at bedtime. Which it was John, he never slept when he was a kid. He was the worst. He was the worst.
Let's deal with the obvious question. Emily and Matt are twins. They have what I think you could describe as a loving but rambunctious relationship with each other.
Yes.
Well, they have a true relationship as a brother and sister.
Yes. Yeah. So how is that? What part of you two are in Emily and Matt?
Oh, I think there's a bit of both. There's a bit of Emily in myself. There's a bit of Matt in myself. There's a bit, or I should say me, in both of them. There's a bit of Carole in both of them. So I couldn't say that, excuse me, that one is exactly like the other. We didn't want to do it that way. We wanted to kind of blend the two together because there's personality traits that Carole has that are probably better than mine, although I wouldn't admit that publicly.
Oh, you're admitting it on camera.
Yeah, well, and vice versa. One of the flaws that she has is she's older. So
Yes, but I'm cuter.
So we wanted, we wanted to make sure though that the relationship between brother and sister, and the fact that you've brought this question up and stated it in the way that you did, it actually means that they are like a brother and sister. You get that right off the bat. And someone else who read the book said the same thing to Carole. They said, it's like I'm actually really, they're like a true brother and sister relationship.
And we have that kind of relationship. I mean, one of the great joys of working together on our projects is that I think as we've gotten older, we might still annoy each other every now and then, but we've actually gotten a lot closer, and I don't think that happens very much in middle age. with siblings very often.
Say that again?
Middle age.
Has one of you reached middle age?
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, are you planning on living to 140?
Hey, middle age in my book is very different. In the gay world, middle age is very different.
I guess. All right. So in my world, I'm middle-aged.
Well, you mentioned working together, so let me ask. Now, John, you live in Wales when you're not filming elsewhere,
Both London
right?
and Wales, yes.
And Carole, you live here, so how did you two actually write the book?
Well, I'll start the story out. I was working on the Torchwood one of the Torchwood books that we've done, or
Is it
one
Exodus
of
Code?
the Exodus Code, or it was the autobiography, the last one. I can't remember. But we were driving from London to Cardiff. It was very late at night because he had just gotten off of a television show, and we were really hyped up on candies.
You were going to say high on sugar.
I was thinking
Let's just say it. We were high on sugar.
We were like bouncing because we needed to stay awake for a 2-hour drive. And so we started chatting, and he said to me, okay, if you had a superpower, what would it be? And so we started thinking about this, and we went back and forth of flying. He wanted to, be Captain Jack and have Captain Jack breathe underwater, and I had to tell him Captain Jack is
already immortal, so it doesn't matter.
What would be the point? And so and then eventually we got to the point that I think we would like our imaginations to be our superpowers. That when we actually imagined something, it came to life.
Yeah.
And then it went from there to think, well, that would be a bit crazy and a bit out of control, because what would be the fun in that? You'd never have any suspense because you could just imagine your way out of every situation. So then we thought about the drawing.
Yeah, and by the end of the journey, the 2.5-hour journey, we had the whole first book completely mapped out. And we also, the first character that we developed on that journey was Zach, not Matt and M. Mm-hmm. And the challenge was to create a character. Well, I wanted to create a character that was in a way, I don't mean this in a bad sense, it's the only first word that pops in, but was different from the other characters. So we chose him to to be deaf. And for Carole, the challenge was to go ahead and write the character.
That? Because then John said, well, are there any other books with deaf characters who are the main characters? And I could think of a few, but they were all in first person. So when you write in first person with a deaf character, you have easy access then. You don't have to worry about, because you're in that character's mindset and point of view, and so you have no, the things that would get in the way of that person being able to communicate, you can get their thoughts, so you know what they're going to say. Right. So we did not want to write a first person novel, and so that became my challenge. And I, in fact, went to my colleagues at Alverno and said, can you name novels with that are not first person with a deaf character? And we had a really hard time coming up, especially children's novels. We could think of a couple. The Hugo Cabret, his follow-up has a deaf character, but we had already written ours by the time his came out.
So we did it first, Hugo. But the thing is, Zach became, in the book, the most communicative character of the three, of M and Matt and Zach, which we think is great. But having said all that, and the journey. And Carole then comes to live, well, she lives with me for about 3 months while we're going through the process of putting
Jim knows I always put off my deadlines or try to.
That's my fault. So after the 3 months of all the information, the taping of conversations, the discussing things, even down to the detail of what car the grandfather's going to drive, blah, 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 Carole goes off after 3 months and goes and sits, and she does the hard work. She writes it. I don't get involved in that aspect. I'm not gifted or talented in that way. That's not my thing. So once she has written it in a book form, when she has the first manuscript of it, she then will give it back to me, and I then read it and give my notes and things on it. So it's truly a collaborative basis.
Yeah, so he would say, I think somebody's going to be bored at this point. He also has a real cinematic view, given his experience.
That was one thing I said to Carole. I said, you have to write this so that we lift it from the book to put it on television or onto the screen.
And even if that were not to happen, you want to have that reading experience, because we wanted it to be very paced with visual and sort of set pieces when things happen that then relate to the next things that happen.
In other words, let's say as a parent, you want boys to read the book.
You got it. We really did. We were very conscious of that, especially these middle grade readers.
Boy, it's boys who don't read at that age.
Right. Let me take a brief detour here, John, just to check in with you about your other job, acting.
Sure.
What's going on with Arrow?
Arrow is it's doing very well. It's we've had a huge response not only in the U.S. with the ratings, but we've also had a huge response in Canada on STV in Canada. It's the highest rated TV show in the history of the network. Sky One in the UK, it's one of their highest rated shows. So it's doing well, but I'm playing a character called the Well-Dressed Man who was introduced just recently in the show. He's introduced very slowly, and it will build as time goes on, but I cannot tell you what his actual name is, but he is within the world of DC Comics. He is, shall we say, pivotal in Starling City with his wealth and his power. I'm not going to give you any more insight, but it'll be one of those, and the reason I'm not saying anything about it is because I am a fan of sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, the works. I want to sit and watch it myself and go, huh! I want the jaw to drop. So yeah, so I'm commuting at the moment between, well, I was commuting from London to Vancouver. I'll be in Los Angeles in the next few days, and I'll be commuting from our house in Palm Springs to Vancouver. So yeah, it's keeping me busy.
Building up the miles.
And we should say that for U.S. viewers, Arrow is on the CW.
On the CW network, yes. And it's doing very well for them also.
What's happening with Torchwood?
Torchwood, we're kind of in a limbo state at the moment.
Okay.
And that's solely because there's contractual things being worked out, not mine. I'm sure there's other things. You know, it's one of those shows that could come back at any time. Russell was just interviewed the other day, and he said the exact same thing. We're kind of in a limbo state. It could come back in a year. It could come back in 6 months. It could come back in 50 years. I won't be there in 50 years. So,
aren't you immortal?
Yeah.
Unless somebody brings the glove out. So.
There you go. Yeah. The risen mitten, we call it.
Right.
The risen
mitten. You know, I know all the fans. This is John Barrowman talking, not anybody who's connected with the BBC or what their decisions are. But I'm out there meeting all the people. I'm out there going to conventions, and there's millions of fans worldwide. So I personally think it would be a great thing to bring back at some point. I've always said, when it does come back, as long as they want me, I will be the one to play Captain Jack. And you can't have Torchwood without Captain Jack. And from what I'm learning from the fans, they want me to play Captain Jack.
And we just finished, or just released in the UK, a Torchwood novel called Exodus Code. And we made a decision when we started and we pitched this that it would be a real Jack story.
Total Jack story.
Like the old Jack, the Jack with the sense of humor, the roguish Jack, the sexy Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we accomplished that. And a lot of the fans keep saying to us, it's not out here in the US. We're not sure.
We're looking for a publisher.
We're looking for a publisher for the US. I know Random House are working on that. There are UK publisher. But we keep saying to people, this should be the next miniseries. It's got all the great components of the sort of the first few series.
And also they're saying the same thing.
Yeah, so that would be cool.
And what are the odds we'll see you in Doctor Who again?
I have no idea. It's not my decision.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I have to make clear to everybody. That I know, because again, a lot of people say, when is Jack coming back to Doctor Who? And like, I'm the one who decides that. Again, it's up to the producers. The producers are different producers than the ones who produced the series with David Tennant and myself and the others. So, but again, if I'm asked, I would absolutely make room for it, because I love the world of Doctor Who. I've loved the show since I was a kid, as has Carole. Captain Jack I love playing because he's changed my life, so I would definitely be a part of it if I was asked.
Now, when you're done with publicity for the day, where are you taking John while he's in town?
Oh, he's been to all the cool places.
I've been to the Calatrava. I've been to the museum. I've been all over.
We actually just bought some furniture at Rubens.
Carole, John, thanks so much for your time and best of luck here.
Thank you, Jim.
very much.
Thank you.